celebrating 48 years on the air. Award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, a special report, Mississippi State's row crop short course. In southern gardening, call it a shrub, a tree, or whatever, sweet olive is intoxicating. In the markets, a follow-up with Dr. Kim, advice for farmers thinking of renegotiating their loans. And in our feature, the rural news biz ain't what it used to be, but it can still be viable. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Thanks for joining us again here on Farm Week. Once again, Happy New Year. Today, we begin our show with a different kind of story, one about an annual event at Mississippi State, drawing more and more people each year. It's called the Row Crop Short Course, a gathering of stakeholders all across agriculture organized by Mississippi State University Extension. It's a chance for all of them to meet one another, shake hands, and walk away with the very latest information in each of their crops and disciplines. What's different about this story? Well, this one focuses on the why to attend as much as the what it's all about. Reporter Jonah Holland was at the short course recently and has this report.
Industry meetings aren't a new thing. Stakeholders have been getting together forever, eager to share leading-edge information that can benefit them all. But at this meeting hall at The Mill near Mississippi State University's campus, there's a sense of anticipation about the row crop short course every time it comes around. Whitney Crow is an associate professor at MSU and one of the organizers.
All of it is fabulous. Depending on what your background is, I would say we have a fair amount of consultants or producers that are curious about the current management recommendations, whether that be chemical or technology, that they can kind of pinpoint what's going to be best for them. And also, most of these individuals and speakers are here for various days, so it serves as an opportunity to have some one-on-one conversations they may not have an opportunity to do at other times.
The row crop short course is our premier educational event. It's an intensive, multidisciplinary event where we have a lot of continuing education credits and a lot of featured speakers from other universities and specialists from all across the United States that come here and share their knowledge and information with the retailers, the growers, and the entire industry in the state of Mississippi and around the region for that matter. We have a lot of attendees from surrounding states as well.
With all of the continuing and mounting pressures on agriculture from prices, weather, regulation, politics, competition, and so on, anything that helps these folks thrive is important. After all, time is money, and time spent here at the short course is time well spent.
Just issues with herbicide labeling and the loss of different herbicides and insecticides that we count on in row crop agriculture. The focus is row crop short course. And so, with just the EPA and these animal rights groups, there's a lot of uncertainty. And so we try to just bring growers up to date with what we know. And then everything from economics to trying to pencil out a profit during tough times.
They're all good. It just depends on what crop you may be interested in more than any other. But basically, learning how to try to make the economics work with the situation that we're in now, and how to make a better crop with less inputs, or maybe try to save some money and try to figure out how we're going to make a profit.
Needless to say, MSU Extension is behind the success of the row crop short course, expanding its outreach and playing bigger roles in the success of producers in Mississippi and across the country.
Oh yeah, big role. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of these extension people. I value their expertise, and we can work with each other. Basically see what they're doing and what they're recommending, and we try to make that work for us. And if we tweak it a little bit, we'll tell them, so well, this is kind of the way I do it, and this is, it works both ways, and we get a lot of good information from them, and they work with us too. There's a lot of test plots that they put out, and a lot of my growers involved in that, like variety trials, insecticide trials, weed control, and they do it on our farms, and we can get a first-hand look at it.
Well, I think it helps highlight the research that we do as extension and research employees at Mississippi State University, and I think it shows how we utilize some of, say, those promotion board dollars to help us do research. It helps us highlight the fact that we have graduate students supporting our programs, helping us provide those research outputs to farmers in the state of Mississippi, and I think that's super important to bring everybody together, and then just the overall networking that you can gain from a meeting like this is important for just about everybody that's here.
A big part of a meeting like this and the other meetings we do is keeping us connected with our stakeholders. We're very well supported by the different commodity boards in our state through their checkoff programs. So whether that's rice, soybeans, and corn, in my case, there's the Cotton State Support Committee, the Peanut Promotion Board. All those groups are very gracious in supporting the work that Mississippi State does, and I think meetings like this help them to see what some of the return on their investment is.
For those on the fence about attending, Jason Bond has some simple advice.
Come and listen and ask questions, and almost guarantee that you'll learn something that you didn't know previously.
In Starkville, reporting for Farm Week, I'm Jonah Holland.
Thanks, Jonah. According to Brian Paralisi, featured in that story, the row crop short course actually started in 2007 and was centered more around cotton in those days. Back then, about 60 to 100 people would participate. Now, he says, about 800 people registered for the event. One of the hot topics, as you might expect, was the use of drones in agriculture. Much of that presentation this year was done by MSU's Autonomy Institute. In other news, a quick story. If you've been to the grocery store lately, you may have noticed there aren't a lot of eggs on the shelves in some areas. A supply shortage caused by bird flu is driving prices up. In Southern California, some people are skipping the supermarket altogether and going straight to the farm. Billy's Egg Farm in Chino still has eggs, lots of them, from their 30,000 cage-free birds. There's been a line of cars about a half-mile long to purchase eggs from the small farm, which says it sells about 20,000 eggs a day. The owner says they have sold out every day since the shortage began.
In our Southern Gardening segment this week, Eddie Smith visits Lumberton, Mississippi, south of Hattiesburg. There he's all about a delightful shrub known as the sweet olive. Here's Eddie.
Today, Southern Gardening is at the Flower Bed Nursery in Lumberton, Mississippi, admiring their sweet olive trees. The sweet olive, also known as fragrant tea olive, is a beloved evergreen shrub or small tree, renowned for its intensely sweet, jasmine-like fragrance and attractive glossy foliage. Sweet olive blooms intermittently throughout the year in warm regions, filling the air with a delightful aroma. Although small and inconspicuous, its blossoms pack a powerful punch when it comes to fragrance, filling the air with a sweet, fruity scent that can be detected from a distance. The blooms are tubular and typically measure less than half an inch across. They grow in small clusters nestled in the leaf axis, blending subtly with the dark green foliage. The glossy, leathery, and dark green foliage provides a lush and refined backdrop for the small but highly fragrant flowers. The evergreen leaves are arranged oppositely on the stems and vary slightly in size, typically ranging from 2 to 4 inches long and 1 to 2 inches wide. Native to Asia, it thrives in USDA zones 8 through 11. Mature plants can reach heights of 10 to 20 feet and widths of 6 to 10 feet, though they can be pruned to maintain a smaller size. With its intoxicating scent and easy care, the sweet olive is an ideal addition to Southern Gardens. I'm Eddie Smith, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up on our Farm Week feature, you know it, we all know it, newspapers are dying, especially in rural communities. It's not a new thing, the demise of newspapers. The U.S. has lost a third of them over the last 20 years. It's becoming a news desert out there. But a Kansas publishing company is asking its rural communities to look inward and support the paper. Can rural journalism survive? That's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith, and their right to make their own plans and arrive at their own decisions, and their ability and power to enlarge their lives and plan for the happiness of those they love. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. That these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report, a slow time of the year.
And also a good time to prepare for the growing season. We'll get into it, but first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then, some advice from an extension economist on how farmers can help their finances this year. And finally, livestock and row crops. What are the biggest market issues right now? So, markets closed the week in the red, all commodities affected. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, live cattle, up about 3.5 cents, an over 1 3/4% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, lean hogs, down over 3 1/4 cents, a 4% decrease from the previous week. So, as we said, this time of the year is normal for farmers to shore up their finances to prepare for the coming growing season. Extension Ag economist Dr. Kevin Kim has 2 suggestions for those wondering what would be a good financial move to make right now.
First, let's try to be proactive. So you want to keep a good financial record on a frequent basis. Farm business is a cyclical business. So based on your historical record, you can sort of predict when you're going to incur a lot of expenses at a certain time of the year. So keeping good financial record is always a recommended act to do. Second, if you see some further interest rate cut, you can renegotiate your existing loans and refinance it. That will relieve you from some of the financial burdens that you faced in the previous year. So those will be my recommendations.
Now we get into some big questions all ag economists are asking. What does 2025 look like? What will be the big moves? We start with livestock Dr. Kenny Burdine from the University of Kentucky talking about 4 big questions he thinks are important to the cattle markets right now.
Question 1. Will there be significant heifer retention? Dr. Burdine says that's been in question for the past several years, mostly due to weather, production costs, and interest rates. But this year he predicts, due to favorable market conditions, if weather does improve, then yes, heifer retention should increase. Question 2. Will slaughter weights keep increasing? Dr. Burdine says that's unsure, but based on last year's trend of high beef prices combined with low grain prices leading to cattle weights being pushed to their limit, it looks like this year things will remain the same on that end, adding that he's unsure how much further weights can be pushed. Question 3. Will poultry and pork production grow greater than expected? Dr. Burdine doesn't think so, but he also points out that pork and poultry production have the capacity to grow faster than beef, and they also compete on the meat markets. That being said, it currently doesn't look like there's going to be an expansion in pork or poultry this coming year. And the final question, will there be any trade policy impacts? Dr. Burdine says it's too early to truly tell what's coming, but he does reiterate that China, Mexico, and Canada are major trading partners with the U.S., and economic policy will affect import and export prices. Over half of U.S. beef exports go to Japan, South Korea, and China, but those are almost exclusively export markets. The uniqueness of each of these trading relationships makes discussion of trade impacts very complex, and something that will be interesting to follow this year.
Similar questions appearing in the row crop markets as well, and it's all too early to tell. But with prices moving as they are, market analyst Christy Van Anchizeth says with tariff talks combined with current stocks, looks like prices will continue to stay low.
I just think that soybeans are in this spot that's the mid zone, that if we come into this next administration, talk tariffs, and you continue to have that ideal situation in Brazil, you can see beans fall down to that $9.11 to even $8.55, which is not what we want to see happen, and that's futures prices. And we know that President Trump wants to get ahead of these tariff talks, and we've been through this once with China, so China knows kind of how to go about this. So I think those conversations hopefully can go better. I'm more concerned about the tariff talk that's being kind of talked about between Canada and Mexico and the U.S. than I am the ones with China. I think that corn actually has friendly statistics behind it. Your carryout of just over 1.7 billion bushel carryout is a decent carryout. It's, well below 2 billion bushel carryout. And after that December 10th report, I actually giggled out loud when I saw that our carryout level was much higher and corn was a good 30 to 50 cents higher than where we currently are. So I think the prices in general are very suppressed right now too. And so I think that you could justify that corn one. We moved on corn marketing over this last week. And one of the biggest things is that I feel like corn's going to have a hard time going at it alone, and I can't find the short-term friendly nature in soybeans and wheat to be able to support that corn market, and it's just been tricky for it to support itself. Yeah, for example, a couple days ago, you watched soybeans. They had like a 12-cent trading range, and corn had like a 3-cent trading range, but corn was consistently trading how soybeans wanted to trade. Soybeans traded negative, all of a sudden corn was down like a half cent. And then soybeans were able to find those buyers come in, and all of a sudden corn was up a penny. And so it just seems like it's tethered to that. And to be honest, they're completely different situations. Corn has friendly fundamentals. Soybeans have disastrous fundamentals, especially worldwide. Corn's managed money holding. You have funds that have continued to buy corn. We'll find out what they did last Tuesday to Tuesday later, but they are long corn, where in soybeans they're short yet. And so I think they're just so different, they're having a hard time correlating together.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Right now, prices reacting to stocks while demand not so certain, and Brazil's crop still underway. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. Here on Farm Week, we also focus on rural life, and much of that is covered by the publishers of newspapers like these. But depending on who you talk to, it's harder now to stay afloat. But it turns out the smaller the circulation, the better the chance the community is willing to support a paper. Here's Colleen Bradford-Krantz.
The sun has barely risen when 4 women began their work in the back room of the Hillsboro Free Press in Hillsboro, Kansas. Within an hour, they are joined by middle and high school students who will deliver the papers under the watchful eye of school employees as part of a life skills class.
We were able to get one of the paper routes, and so we come and pick up the papers and fold them on Tuesday mornings, and then deliver one of the paper routes, and it teaches them work ethic, and that's what our classroom is about.
None of this might have been possible if it weren't for Joey and Lindsay Young. The couple took over the Hillsborough Free Press and run 2 other South Central Kansas newspapers during a period when many might have looked at industry trends and fled.
It's just, I really liked it, and it was youth and ignorance. Like, it was just that, like, abundance of, like, 20-something-year-old attitude that, like, you're indestructible and that, like, older people don't know what they're doing. I think there are certain things that we did better. And then there were a lot of things that I needed to be humbled with and that I was, just flat out incorrect about.
It was 2012 when the Youngs bought their first newspaper, The Clarion, in Andale, Kansas.
Lindsay and I lived like paupers. We saved my copy desk salary for 6 to 8 months, something like that. We sold a car to get enough down payment and enough money to put in the bank, which was still not enough, to purchase the paper.
The Youngs, with their money and time invested in keeping local journalism alive, are part of a shrinking group. According to Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism, the United States lost more than 1/3 of its newspapers over the past 20 years. The nation now has 208 counties without any local news source at all, areas Medill calls news deserts. If given a choice today, Joey Young wouldn't change the path that led him from his job at a daily newspaper to where the couple now operates their Kansas publishing ventures out of the Harvey County Now newspaper office in Newton. But he would change the conversation about local journalism.
All I hear is like this really depressing statistic that everybody likes to throw out to claim that like newspapers are dying, right? Never is there a follow-up to where like, hey, that town lost 50% of its population over the last 20 years. If you're losing Main Street businesses, do I think that there's a magical answer for sustaining journalism in your community? No, I don't. Like, you have to figure out how your community is going to survive. If your community is going to survive, a newspaper will survive.
To make sure community members and business owners keep a bit of focus on their local newspapers, the Youngs and their employees have done everything from a Halloween-themed toy ghost treasure hunt in downtown businesses to hosting an annual concert in a local park to a Friday community happy hour in the Newton newspaper office.
We used to have a Democrat elected to State House, which represented Newton. He came for a beer Friday, and so did the local head of the Republican Party. And we were all just hanging out, having a beer. And I was like, well, this is great. This is America. This is the way things should be. We're all just kind of having civil conversation, being a part of the community, which I think is special.
He knows not everyone is interested in being engaged in their local community, but enough still see value in it.
A lot of these small towns, the people that live there, they grew up there and they know just about everybody. So when you have a local newspaper, you can connect to those people that you've known. You can see if someone is going, like the homecoming queen and king, who's in the games, like as far as sports, what kind of local events are going on, like festivals.
But the financial struggles are real. When paper prices spiked during COVID, the company struggled to break even. Instead of suffering quietly, the Youngs were honest with their readers and put out a survey to see whether they wanted to rely strictly on the digital versions or pay a little more to continue the printed version.
9 out of 10 of our readers said they wanted a print paper and that they would pay more.
Nearly 90% of subscribers stuck with them when they went ahead and doubled the subscription fee. Throughout their dozen years as publishers, the Youngs have struggled with recruiting journalists, as some aren't sure about living in smaller communities. They are not alone with this challenge, as other rural news outlets also struggle with recruiting. As a former high school journalism teacher, Lindsay came up with a plan for non-journalists called Earn Your Press Pass.
This was just a way of saying, okay, well, here's, somebody who's lived in our community for 20 years. They've put kids through the school district. They work here. They know everybody. And let's just teach them how to write and do a good interview. And now they can be an asset for the newspaper.
Lindsay cringes to think of a future where more counties become news deserts. She says that ghost papers, where the product is still there but with no local reporters, are not much better.
We take a lot of pride in just making sure that local governments are doing the right thing, and having a person at the back of the room is amazing how much that holds people accountable to make sure they're doing the right thing. I feel like we're protecting our taxpayers too.
Ultimately, it's the upholding of the newsroom's traditional task of being the recorders of the first rough draft of history that matters to her.
I think for us as community papers, we're the only recorders of history. There isn't anybody else that's writing any of this stuff down or reporting on it. Being such an intimate part of a community and being a place where people trust you with their stories and with what's going on, I think it's such a gift, and it's humbling, and it's really fabulous to be part of. So I absolutely 100% am head over heels in love with the industry.
You know, Mike, I'm actually more of an e-reader myself, I guess.
Yeah, generational thing, I guess. Well, next week, Mississippi's wild hog problem. We look forward by looking back a few years.
In August of 2017, Farm Week ran a hogumentary, a look at what was even then already an exploding wild hog population.
It's no laughing matter. Wild hogs destroy land and crops. We'll take a look at the numbers and see just how serious the problem is now. A hogumentary update next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.